and she is both faculty and staff at Heart in Motion. So if you're a part of our community, or you will be in the future, you might receive emails from her on the admin side, but she's also a lovely dancer who's performed professionally and continues to teach both adults and youth students. So I'm going to ask her to let us know what she teaches.
All right. Well, my regular class is an open level hip hop slash K-pop choreography class that I do every Wednesday at 8 p.m. But I have also subbed for different levels of ballet for both youth and adults, and I do privates for ballet sometimes as well.
Great. I know we love when you can work with the students, but the hip hop class you teach tonight has some teenagers, some adults. It's been a mix while we're home, and it has no experience necessary. So it's been really great. I know some of our faculty members are also dance educators in different high schools. So we've been inviting them to come in and dance a couple weeks ago. So that was really special. And I know we have fused your hip hop class with K-pop. Do you want to tell the audience why we chose to include K-pop and what that is if they don't already know?
So obviously K-pop's been really popular right now, but it's the Korean pop music, and I like to teach that choreography because one, it's fun. Two, it's something where you can look it up on YouTube after the class and have a reference point and continue learning it if it's a dance you really like, or compare yourself or learn more details on your own. Three, I like pulling from those choreographies because usually they have a very distinct style in each one. So I feel like I can focus on a particular topic for every class that's different depending on what the dance is. So rather than just always focusing on my own choreography and having to remember that and display it, I can take something that is already designed and break it down and try to teach why the movements are the way they are so you have a little bit more knowledge about the choreography rather than just learning the steps to do the dance.
That's deep, Devin. We love it. Now we know where it all comes from every Wednesday night. We know where to follow you. Before teaching, what was your dance training?
So I was professionally trained as a ballet dancer from the School of American Ballet in New York City from the age of 10 until I graduated from the school at 18. And I was just there consistently from the girls 2 division for the youth all the way up through the rest of the school. And I pretty much mostly focused on ballet, but we were also required to have ballroom classes, um, some Russian character classes, and then in the summer when I went to different programs like Miami City Ballet and Pacific Northwest Ballet, we had other classes as well with flamenco, jazz, modern. We kind of just had a combination of some other classes depending on which program we were at. And I've also taken other stuff such as aerial silk dancing for something fun to try out, and belly dancing. Those two I actually really enjoy doing. Um, and I didn't start training in hip hop until after I had actually graduated from my ballet school, and then I've kind of stuck with that lately.
How did you get into teaching when you were there?
So my ballet school, when you get into the advanced division, has a student teaching program where students can sign up to be assistant teachers for classes, and students that show promise with teaching, teachers will be assessing you constantly as you're helping in the class, and they will pick a couple people per year, usually one or two, from guys and girls, to then teach their own class. Usually they end up teaching younger levels. I really wanted to teach because I was very much interested in that. So I went to the principal of the school, Kay Mazzo, and like very forwardly asked, "Can I please be the teacher at the end of the year, or at least one of them?" So rather than having to wait to get picked, I knew I was going to get my own class. And she actually gave me the last intermediate division, so like ninth graders or so. And I remember she told me I gave a really good class, but that it was a little hard. And she had actually wanted me to teach even higher levels because she saw I was capable of doing that. But I did that for about 2 years, and I taught mostly youth, a couple days a week, and they pay you while doing this, so it's actually a really good student job while you're at the
Yeah,
school.
that's great. And I know you're still a student working hard at college, and you mentioned some of the advanced levels that you taught in the city. I know we've seen you teach the real true beginners in our youth program and our adults, and you're absolutely fantastic at breaking it down using imagery. So we love having you in the summer and the private lessons you mentioned. But is there a piece of advice in particular that you would give your students? It could be different for youths and adults or the same, that they could maybe take from one of your classes?
I think, well, in my classes, I definitely try not to use a lot of actual dance terminology if it's a beginner class, because when you have that entry point, even if you are adult, you don't know these words, so you really need a full breakdown. So I want people to know that, especially with my classes, it doesn't really matter what your level is. I really try to make sure it is tailored to who I have and what I can do, so anyone can try it, and I will make it work for you. I will work with you very closely to make sure it's something that you can understand. And I love when students ask as many questions as possible, so never be afraid to ask questions in my class or other people's classes, because it makes me feel like I'm getting to the student, they're responding to me, and we can like work on something together to create the right movement.
That's amazing. And I know from our end, one thing that is amazing for me, because I have taken Devon's class, I do love hip hop and it's a lot of fun. I'm still working on my wave. But I know whenever I'm around her in the office, now we're working remotely, but even when you speak to her, if you ever have a question for the back end and it's about anything we offer, she's the calmest person you've ever met. And if there's ever stressful situations, you can get on and it's online recital day. She's just so patient, and you're so talented on the technical side, both virtually and in dance technique. So it's amazing to have you, because there are some high stress situations where we're obviously in the middle of a pandemic, and we've been backstage, we've been through so many productions together already. I'm just wondering if you could ease the audience, ease their mind, and let them know the most difficult moment you had in your career. Is there anything challenging that you had in your life as a dancer so far that you could maybe share?
Um, I would say my dance school as a whole, like SAB as a whole, was very challenging, and I feel like emotionally, I think I'm calm because nothing can be more stressful than that was. And it's not anything particular with the school, it's just the environment of being trained as a professional ballerina is very, there's so much mental stress on you every day as they try to push you to the most. You're competitive with your friends and classmates around you, and it's like you're also a teenager, so everything is very emotional to you and volatile, and it's a strange experience. And I feel like dealing with that for so many years and having so many ups and downs and days of happiness that I did well in class or disappointment that I couldn't even do a basic pirouette has just made me a lot calmer when it comes to the dance world and like dealing with people and dealing with stress, because I don't know, it was so difficult. I feel like emotionally nothing can be harder than that. Obviously, there will be like, if you have loss in your family, that's pretty hard. But I think most things, like, I have a reference of something that was really hard, so I can kind of work through it and be confident that I can work through something that is difficult for me.
That's awesome. I know you also had a recent, somewhat challenge because you were studying in a foreign country. And I remember when you went, now you're a little bit older, but when you went, I know you weren't even 21 and you were going to Korea. And I remember after adult ballet, everyone was saying, oh my goodness, you know, it must have been difficult for you going there. Do you want to share anything about your experience being such a young dancer in another country where you don't speak the language? I know you have some words, and you've gotten, a little bit of studying into the Korean language, but do you want to talk a little bit about Korea and how you got there? And
So that was an interesting trip. The group I went with, we were sent over by another studio that I take classes at, and they were contacted to like put a group together to try to get us over there. When we got over there, we started working immediately. From the second we got off the plane, we had to go do our costume fittings and go to the studio. And then we had very few breaks. Our breaks were only for food and to sleep at the end of the night. We rehearsed roughly 12 to 14 hours a day for the entire week we were there. And then the filming day, we would have to go to the hairstylist at like 4 in the morning, and we'd be there until midnight. So, because they were just trying to film it all in one day. So it was a very long process every day, but I really liked it, and I liked that I was able to do something that was a street style and more hip hop based on TV, because I felt like that was the first real big performance I had that wasn't ballet related, and I could kind of prove myself as a dancer and have this video evidence of me doing something that wasn't just my classical training, that I have like both these sides of me that can do that. So the trip was interesting. We did have translators so we could understand things well, but most of my group had studied a lot of Korean before going, so we were kind of familiar with a lot of things when we were told. But it was a very fun trip overall. It was a really good experience. The whole trip was paid for too, so it was very stress free financially. And it was just, we had to work with choreographers from one of the biggest entertainment companies in Korea. So that was also a really good experience because he was really nice and he gave us some good feedback on our performance and dancing.
So if someone wants to check out your videos on YouTube, I know I've seen them. Do you want to let them know what show you're on or how they could maybe search some of your videos?
Mm-hmm. It might be a little difficult because some of the titles do have Korean lettering, but for the most part, it's from the company JTBC, 4 letters, and the show was called Stage K. And my episode that I was on was tailored for the K-pop group Icon. IKON is the spelling for that.
I know they're so popular. We've found so many students coming into your class that say, "Oh no, you danced with them. I love them," right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's really cool because it's reached well beyond the Korean community, and it's really versatile. We've seen so many people who love the diversity that's in the genre of K-pop. I know for me, every time you teach a class, the music in that K-pop genre is so versatile. Is there anything in particular you want to let the audience know about the K-pop culture, in general?
I think it's just good to understand that their songs are so different because they really try everything. They really pull from everything. It doesn't matter, like, say someone in the US like Sam Smith, like his style is pretty consistent. With K-pop groups, because they try to reach new levels of popularity every time, they try vastly different genres in the same group, sometimes on the same album. So it's very different. They pull from everything, and it's kind of interesting because you get to see how they experiment and work with so many different styles. Like I know a lot of this one group, NCT, a lot of their stuff pulls kind of almost from musical theater and jazz for half their
Hmm.
choreography and a lot of their harmonies and sounds, where some people do more EDM, some people do this one solo artist does a lot of voguing in her choreography. So there's a lot of different styles that get pulled and very different things that you can see. So it's kind of, you never really get bored because you don't really know what they're going to do.
It's very true. And I know I've identified in the couple classes I've taken of yours, there's a lot of gesture in the choreography. And I know you mentioned that a little bit to me because we've had, both males and females in your class. It's very gender neutral. But of course, when you were there, you studied the female roles. And we've talked a little bit about that in terms of gesture, which, as a modern dancer is one of my signatures. And I love that use of gesture. I don't know if you want to explain to the audience what I mean by that.
Yeah, so um, a lot of female choreography for K-pop is based very much on motion of the hands and upper body. So there's a lot more tiny, small details with fingers and hands and head angles and looking, whereas male choreography may focus more on footwork and bigger gestures and bigger emotions and transitions. So that's kind of, if you want more of a classic hip hop class, you might want to learn more male choreography because you get the big motions and the big classic steps. And a female might be if you want to learn something that's really good for brain power and memorization and understanding how to like position yourself really evenly.
With those details. It's really interesting. I know it's a cultural dance form. Hip hop was built on culture too. So there has all these little nuances in your classes, which are really interesting. But if we wanted to learn a little bit more about yourself as a whole person outside of teaching and dancing, what do you enjoy doing in your spare time?
Say my two biggest things that I enjoy the most are video games. I've been doing that since I was 3 years old. I've kind of picked that up from my dad and my brother. That was their big hobby, and I liked it too, so I've stuck with that my whole life. And then I've also had um, quite the affinity towards learning foreign languages. I started in 6th grade when I won the school spelling bee and got a free course online where I could learn any language through like a K-12 program. And so I started learning Latin, and then I became very interested in Japanese, Chinese, Korean, and understanding the similarities and differences between the three big Asian languages. But I also have learned some things in Swedish and a couple words in French, obviously, with ballet, and then um, Hebrew because I'm Jewish, so sometimes I pick up some of those words just from like years of Passover Seders. So like I've always had an interest in different languages, and I would learn different alphabets in middle school. And basically, I would take my school notes in a whole bunch of different languages and alphabets just so I could practice. So that's kind of so gaming and languages are kind of my two main hobbies.
That's so cool. I know it gives us a really interesting view of you as a whole person because, of course, dance is a huge part of your life, but there's a lot more to us. So thanks for sharing that. But in terms of the performance world, can we ask one last question? What's your favorite memory in a performance?
I think the performance in Korea the first time was actually no. The second time we went, the last performance we did of the night was probably the most memorable thing because by that point it was the grand finale of the season for the show. The show was over. It was the last time we knew we were, at least then, we were going to go to Korea with that group of people and see that audience. And the dance we had to do was very comedic. So we kind of just all let go and have a ton of fun and really act it up and play it up. So it felt like a very heartwarming and pure experience as a performance. And it just seemed very happy by the end of the night. We felt very satisfied with what we had done, and I think that was one of the few times I had felt like really satisfied with the performance and been looked back at it fondly.
That's amazing. I think I know the piece you're talking about, and it is comedic. Something we always say in dance choreographer land is that it is so hard to be funny on stage. And to feel that energy that you did, not only in a stellar performance, but something that was comedic, probably felt like a huge accomplishment for you. And it's also new choreography. There are, of course, funny moments in the famous dances that we know, but this was new, original choreography by the icons. So if someone came into your class, right, do you think there would be anything familiar they would recognize, maybe from a hip hop vernacular? Or do you try to keep it, because you fuse the two, right? So it's not, would you want to talk a little bit just about the difference and the similarities of hip hop and K-pop?
I mean, they most K-pop choreography, like that's all gonna pull from very basic hip hop stuff. A lot of steps in certain things. Like one dance I recently learned used very basic house footwork in that style. So I almost think any style of dancer could come in and start learning K-pop choreography because it pulls from everything. If you are more into like Broadway musical theater type of dance, there's a ton of dances that pull from that style that you could learn and feel comfortable picking up something that's like more mixed with hip hop. Or if you're a classic hip hop dancer, there's dances for that. Even ballet dancers, there's a lot of girl groups that use very fluid arms. So there's something for that. There's kind of dances that anyone can pick up no matter what styles you've learned.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for being here today, Devin. I know you're on faculty, so you get the perk of, taking in a lot of classes yourself, as do I. So, other than your own classes, what's your favorite class to take at Heart and Motion?
I really like Olivia's ballet class, and I usually take the Friday because that's the hardest. But I actually have recently discovered that I really like Lynn's Pilates ball class, so I definitely, now that I'm out of school, want to start incorporating that into my routine every Thursday morning because I actually really liked that.
Yeah, it's a great cross training for dancers. It's awesome. Thank you so much for being here and checking out Devin. Her class is amazing. She's going to teach her K-pop, hip hop fusion class tonight at 8 p.m. Remember, your first class online is free. We have all our Zoom links live. You can just go to heartinmotionstudio.com, go to the class schedule page, check it out, try Devin's class. We love having her on faculty and staff. And like we said, no experience necessary. I'll be teaching my cardio dance class tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Again, we're just doing this for fun while we're home, create some community. So thank you so much for telling us more about what you do at Heart and Motion, Devin. Thank you for being here today.
Of course, thank you.